Hi, I'm Nicole Blanchette-Nahealy, and this is the fourth and last learning module in a series of videos on analytics for journalists. Analytics are used by all platforms of news and help inform decisions on everything from where content should be placed on a web page to what types of stories are included in a TV newscast. There are a lot of different analytics tools, but we're going to look at Google Analytics for the Ryerson website. And as those of you know who've seen the first three modules, the goal here isn't to give you an exact how-to on the software, but an understanding of how analytics work and basic navigation tips. In this module, we're going to talk about how you can use analytics to help engage and grow your audience. For web journalism, page views used to be considered the most important measure of success. Remember, page views are just the number of visits or clicks on pages in your website. But many editors are now looking at engagement, how long people spend on a story, if they follow the links, or if they watch the embedded video. Although that might be a better way of determining an audience's appreciation of your site, most advertising is still connected to the number of eyeballs that reach the content, which is again the page views, and as a result, the number of impressions or advertisements that users see. So what's the impact of all of this on daily newsroom production? A story that's bringing in the audience will likely receive better placement on a web page or news program. Throughout the day, editors will do things like test out different headlines to see which ones get the most clicks. And no matter what newsroom you end up in, you need to understand how analytics are used to influence editorial decision-making. Let's take a look at a few examples. Remember that Reddit referral in the previous videos that caused a spike in traffic but didn't lead to a lot of engagement on the site? So you be the editor. What could you do to help draw the audience in? There are a number of options. You could try changing the related links and watch in real time to see if that could get people moving through the site. Although likely not the case here, sometimes a headline can lead readers to think they're going to get a different type of story. Making your headline reflect closely what people will read helps to ensure they just don't bounce out of your site and might get them exploring your site further. So a change in headline is another option to promote your story. But would you do that for the visitors that came through after searching YouTube sex and finding the story on The Sex Educator? You're likely not going to chase after that particular audience. In most newsrooms, there are analytics tools that allow editors to test out different types of headlines to see what attracts more readers. But even using Google Analytics, you can just switch up the headline, then watch in real time to see if it makes a difference. You also want to ensure you're using good keywords in your headline to help boost the numbers from your organic search channel. With every story you create, you should be looking at ways to push your own content and bring in readers through the social channel, as well as frequently checking out their social pathways. Another thing to think about is that if an article is getting good traction via social media, you want to give it a real push on your own social media accounts to build on that traction. And don't just send a tweet. Target people with hashtags and by using specific Twitter handles. Also, remember to check out the analytics information available within your social media. As well as being a journalism professor, I'm a section editor for the Canadian Journalism Project, or JSource. So we're going to take a look at the data available on some of their sites as an example. On YouTube, if you go to My Channel, you can select subscribers and it will show you who they are. I'm not doing that right now for privacy protection, but we can take a look at the views. And then this panel opens up, and using what you've already learned from these modules, look at all the data waiting for you to mine, who's watching what and how they're watching. On Facebook, if more than 30 people like your page, here's what you can find out. Demographics of what is liked, when your page is being accessed, what's being shared. You can also get analytics for Twitter. Here's a look at the info from my own account on how people are interacting with my tweets, and there's also information on my followers. The idea, again, is that you find out as much as possible about your audience so that you know who they are and what they like, and then use that information to create content they will come and get. Now, what if you have a great story on your site and no one seems to be looking at it? Placement can be important for web stories. Those that are above the fold on the home page, or in other words above where you have to scroll up, are more visible and usually get more clicks. So if it's not in a prime spot already, you could try moving the story. Sometimes editors will find that a story just doesn't seem to be connecting with the audience. They then have to decide if it should be taken off the home page or moved from a prime spot to make room for something that draws more readers. Also, think about the way the story is packaged. For example, the pictures being used to promote it can also be an area to consider. Maybe a different picture or pictures or a data visualization might draw more interest. Remember, you're also always looking for trends and anomalies. So that spike on time spent on the page for that story back on May 7th, why did that happen? Is there another angle to this piece you could expand on for another story? When looking at the numbers, you also have to consider if a blip, either for better or worse, could be based on something else that was happening in the news that day. An example of this could be more hits to the sports section during the Olympics. That doesn't necessarily mean your audience base is more interested in sports overall. It might be just during that particular event. And remember that most media organizations are now multi-platform. So think about how to push your web story on TV or your print or TV story on the web or radio. It's all about taking every opportunity you have to promote your content in as many ways as you can. So those are just a few ways that analytics can impact editorial decisions in a newsroom, and how you can use them to help engage and grow your audience. But to end this series of videos, I want to emphasize that analytics are a useful tool, but they don't trump news judgment. You also need to use your gut and your brain if you want to be a good journalist.